Free agency is basically wrapped up for the Indianapolis Colts and the rest of the league, so it's time for a mock draft Monday. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd of horseshoehuddle.com, and my partner Jake Arthur is our credentialed boots on the ground for the site as well. We are here for Mock Draft Monday, everybody. Yes, Mock Draft Monday is back. We're here mocking the Colts, not in the way that we're typically mocking the Colts, Jake, but we're doing our dueling mock drafts, and usually we do a kind of a theme for these. Like, I think the last time we did this, it was like the athletic freaks post-combine. We did another one where we both had to like trade down and such, but because the makeup of this Colts team is so drastically different now than what it was for all of our other mock draft Mondays, we do have to just kind of start fresh here, Jake. So we're basically going off vibes today. You're going off your vibe on what you think the Colts might do come draft day. I'm going off what I think the Colts might do. So, Jake, kick us off. What do you got the Colts doing in round one of this mock draft Monday? On what day are we? Monday, March 17th, mock draft Monday? That's what we're on right now.
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day mock draft Monday. Who do you got in this all vibes mock draft?
Yep. So I'll add the caveat here that we have to always add some sort of wrinkle. So for the first time, I'm trading back and you are trading up. So I traded back to number 18 with the Seattle Seahawks, 14 to 18. I recouped a third rounder there. In reality, the Colts could probably also get like a future sixth or fifth or something out of that. But we just went kind of pick for pick on this one. I'm getting Colston Loveland here, tight end out of Michigan. Now this, I'm sure he's much more likely to be available to the Colts than Tyler Warren is. But you know, if both guys are equal and they were there on the board, it's kind of just, you know, pick your flavor. So Tyler Warren is a bit of the kind of complete package. You can move him around, do a bit with him. If you want a guy who is able to inline block and he can go out and catch, he can do some stuff, you know, after the catch as well. I think Colston Loveland is a bit more mobile and fluid as a runner. I think he very much gives off big receiver vibes. That can come with kind of, you know, a connotation of he can't block though, which he can. There was someone who made the comparison to these two before of like both of them at their ceiling, best case scenario. It's like picking, do you want Rob Gronkowski or Travis Kelce? Both elite players who you could consider, you know, the best. And I think that's a sky high shooting for it. But I saw a much more level-headed comparison where someone compared Loveland to Sam Laporta. And I saw it and I was like, yes, that absolutely fits. I really like that comparison. He's not a guy who you're just going to sit there on the line and let him block all game. But he's capable in spurts when you want to do that. But otherwise, very fluid athlete. Becomes a big part of your passing game right away and becomes another security blanket that Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones could have. And it's not just Josh Downs anymore, being able to kind of move the sticks a little bit. You know, Michael Pittman Jr., as much as some people might like to think, you know, he is that guy. They do a little bit more with him. So you do need that pass catching tight end that they have lacked for so long. So you give a guy like Colston Loveland, who, again, really good hips, very mobile, in and out of his breaks, does a lot after the catch. Real feisty guy, too, is going to be kind of fiery, and some of his teammates can feed off of that energy as well. So there's really not much to not like here when it comes to Loveland.
Yeah, and actually, it's kind of funny when you say that super high comparison of Kelce to Loveland and Gronk to Warren.
Mm-hmm.
I would kind of say Loveland reminds me more of Kelsey than Warren reminds me of Gronk, in terms of Loveland moves similarly to Kelsey
Mm-hmm.
with that basketball player playing
Yeah,
football type of footwork, that
very
Euro
smooth.
stepping, and yeah, it's very clean footwork. Obviously those are really high end comparisons there. But I would honestly argue that one of the best things that could have happened for Loveland this past year was playing in an offense that could not throw the football, because he had to be a better blocker this
Yeah.
past season, because the ball was definitely not going to get to him. He had to work in the run game a little bit better. So Loveland, again, I think 14 is a bit too high. 18 might be a little high too, but I can live with taking him at 18 if you're trading back and picking up an extra third round pick like you did in your mock draft here. For me, I'm going the opposite direction. I am really leaning into the Colts moving up for their guy this year. I think this offseason's been all about Chris Ballard correcting the wrongs of the past. And last year, we know that he was trying to get up there for Malik Neighbors and then trying to get up there for Brock Bowers and couldn't close the deal on those trades. Now, this free agency, he's been able to close the deal on free agents. So I think he's going to be able to close the deal here on moving up for the tight end that he's looking for, and that is Tyler Warren. So I used a couple of former trades in past drafts as my like precursor for this trade here. I only went up from pick 14 to 11 in this one. So I sent San Francisco the 80th overall pick, along with the 14th pick for pick number 11. And my trade that I kind of used as a reference point was when Philadelphia went up to number 10 from number 12 back in the 2021 draft. They gave up their third round pick to go up and get that. If you want to go up to like pick number 7 or pick number 8, I have past drafts there. I mean, back in 2018, when the Bills went up to number 7 to get Josh Allen, they gave up 2 second round picks with number 12 to get up to number 7. So if you really want to secure Tyler Warren and get up to like number 7 or 8, you would have to give up maybe 2 seconds or a second and a third to get up there. But those are certainly on the table as well. For this one, I only went up to number 11. I gave up pick 14 and pick 80 to go up to number 11 to get Tyler Warren. And yeah, Tyler Warren's just, look, it's not Brock Bowers of last year, but it's pretty darn close in terms of just being a mismatch nightmare. His ability to catch and block, it would be a massive aspect, a massive addition to this offense. And I've been talking about it all season that the Colts need a tight end that can allow them to live in 11 personnel. They just have not been able to do that under Shane Steichen thus far, having a number 1 tight end that can also catch and block. They haven't had that guy. They've had a lot of guys who can catch but can't block, or block and can't catch or can't do either, honestly, with some of these guys they've had. But Tyler Warren gives them the best of both worlds. He allows them to live in 11 personnel. He gives them a threat over the middle of the field to go with Josh Downs. So, yeah, I mean, look, in a perfect world, I wouldn't trade up for a guy like Tyler Warren because I don't know if he's necessarily worth, the 11th overall pick, like giving up 2 picks to go up and get him. But when you talk about how he complements this offense and how he makes this team better, I'm fine with this type of trade up here because it just makes your team better. I always go back to when the Colts trade up for Jonathan Taylor back in that 2020 draft, where I was like, look, trading up for a running back, I don't absolutely love it, especially when they had like a guy like Marlon Mack and Nyheim Hines coming back. Like, I really didn't feel like the Colts needed to move up for Jonathan Taylor. But at the end of the day, I was like, they're going to get a player who just makes their team better and makes their offense better. So who am I to complain about that too much? It's really what like this with Tyler Warren, where if the Colts move up and get him, their offense is better from day one than what it was last season. So I think that'll be worth it in the end there. So you guys can kind of see the difference there, where I'm giving up a third round pick to go get Tyler Warren. Jake is gaining a third round pick to take Colston Loveland. What do you guys think when it comes to just kind of the push-pull of that there? Would you rather move up for Warren or move back for Loveland? Jake, I know you picked Loveland this, but which one would you rather do if you had the choice?
Yeah, I'm actually all on board with being aggressive, just like you. I think the Colts are now in a position where, with this attitude, they're closer to being competitive now than they were just sitting on their hands. And making a move and being aggressive, like getting a guy like Tyler Warren, is not the same as like a Trey Hendrickson. Warren has his whole career ahead of him, and Trey Hendrickson, for example, is a 30-year-old pass rusher that you'd have to give a gazillion dollars to. So this is not the same in terms of being aggressive. This year, I also like the idea of you get Tyler Warren and you get the whole package. If you get like Colston Loveland, for example, I still would feel better going and get that veteran blocking tight end. Mo Alley Cox or just whoever else is out there. With Warren, you can live with that being the only addition you make to the tight end room. You still have Drew Ogletree. You still have Will Mallory. You can see how it goes there. But with the Loveland, I feel like you probably need one more extra piece there. But no, Tyler Warren does it all for you. Either of these guys give Shane Steichen the go-to weapon at tight end that his offense has always worked best with. But yeah, gun to my head, if I would rather trade up for Warren or trade back for Loveland, go get the guy that you want. Like they have missed on doing that for so long. Like I just want to see them be aggressive and go up and get a guy like Tyler Warren.
Awesome. So Jake has agreed that my mock draft so far is off to a better start than his. So coming up, we'll talk about round 2 and see if Jake can rebound there and catch up to this progress I've made on him.
Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all of my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you actually start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I actually realized just how much I was spending on food delivery, which again, keep it running, baby. Make cuts in other areas. But now I can budget smarter in those other areas and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control out of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off of your first year. And March Madness is here, everybody. We just had Selection Sunday. Everyone's filling out their brackets today. And FanDuel is giving you guys the chance to get in on all the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters, Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. I have got my eye on a few underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. With tournament games happening pretty much every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. There is no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on all the sweet college hoops action all tournament long. All right, Zach, we're on to round 2. We got us a couple tight end studs with our first picks. Very obvious biggest needs on the Colts roster. So what do you got in store for us in round 2?
Yeah, so look, I have to make up that 3rd round pick, right? No one's gonna pick me in the comments if I only have 2 picks compared to your 4. So I had to move back in order to recoup that 3rd round pick here. So really what I was looking at was teams that have the compensatory picks, because those are typically the teams that like to move up in round 2, and they're more willing to give up those 3rd round compensatory picks. Think about years ago when the Colts moved back in round 2 to pick up that extra 3rd round pick for Bernhard Raimann. Years ago, that worked out great for the Colts. So what I ended up doing was moving back from the 45th overall pick. I also gave up the 151st pick to Detroit for the 60th pick and the 102nd pick. Again, I'm not too perfect with the trade details here, but anyway, on Mock Draft Monday to get me my 3rd pick here so I can compete with you here, Jake. So I moved back to pick 60. And with pick 60, it's a tad bit of a reach, but the Colts need an offensive lineman. And I'm taking Tate Ratledge, lineman from Georgia. I think, with the Colts having a vacancy on their offensive line or just having a need for depth on the offensive line, getting a player like Ratledge in here to compete for a starting job. And you can either keep Gonsalves as the swing right tackle. You can even have Gonsalves start at right guard and then have Ratledge be the backup swing guard. And then if there's an injury at right tackle, like there usually is, you can bump Gonsalves back out there to right tackle and then start Ratledge. Like this gets your offensive line, just overall team, a lot better on the offensive line. So Tate Ratledge is a guy I'm very high on. Big, athletic, beautiful mullet to go along with what the Colts already have on the interior with Tanner Bordellini with the mullet. So I just think that's perfect there. And he's also a guy where when I watch his film and I look at his background, I think this is such a Chris Ballard guy, just in terms of he's dealt with some injuries in college and he's always bounced back, and he's even played through the injuries at times. This past year, he missed a whole month of play. He had ankle surgery and he had a knee injury. And lo and behold, he came back after 3 weeks and played through that the rest of the year and had some really great film after the injury. Now, it's terrifying to give a Colts team like this a guy who's had some injury problems, but
Yeah.
I just know, knowing Chris Ballard is going to look at that and be like, that's a tough guy who went on our interior. Yeah, he just brings the athleticism and the toughness and the physicality we want. So getting him here at pick 60 in the second round, I think Tate Ratledge is very much a guy who's going to be very high on Chris Ballard's board. And look, if they're still looking for more interior offensive lineman depth on round 2, I could totally see them taking him at 45 even. He's just such a Colts player.
No, I like that one. They obviously need more depth along the offensive line. And like you said, if you put it in the interior, that gives them the flexibility to move Gonzalez around. But no, given a nasty guy with that sort of mentality fits very well with how the Colts operate since 2018 and the establishment of run the damn ball. Ratledge is a really good fit there, so I like that one a lot. Now, for me, you guys know I love my third, fourth round linebackers, but there's got to be a bridge between Jihad Campbell and Jalen Walker in the first, and then your Demetrius Knights and Jeffrey Bosses there in the middle rounds. And for me, the perfect pick for that is who I've got here in round 2. That's Carson Schwessinger of UCLA. The more I watch him, the more I am bought in. This guy has great size. He's 6'2", 240-ish. Has really, really good athleticism, but he moves around like those 6'1", 225, 230-pound linebackers that the Colts like. This guy is a stat sheet stuffer. He does everything. Well over 100 tackles, had about 100 solos, which I think led the nation, if not the conference. Gets a ton of tackles, 4 sacks, couple picks. He's really good in pass coverage. The interceptions weren't just clunky linebacker fell in his breadbasket ones either. He actually had to work for him and move around and get to him. So he is great in coverage, one of the best coverage linebackers in this draft. Again, I mentioned the 4 sacks, so he's pretty decent at rushing the passer as well. Good at disguising his blitzes, but getting, taking his time, diagnosing for a second and firing through there. So this guy is the total package. I think he fits pretty much everything the Colts would like to have at linebacker. He doesn't have the vines for arms. They're not short, but they're not, he's not going to be able to corral the entire trenches with his arms like what Chris Ballard normally covets. But if that's the only thing he's willing to give up to get a linebacker like that, a true 3-down linebacker who is absolutely picture perfect for the will role here, you got to go ahead and do it. The only question is this guy going to be available there when they pick there in the second round? Because he could easily be gone in the top 40.
Yeah, and I kind of said it with Tate Ratledge, where Chris Ballard's kind of a sucker for those stories. The stories that we all get up for the draft. The best part of draft night are those great stories that these players have. And Schwessinger is a similar guy, where former walk-on at UCLA had to work into his role there only 1 year as a starter. 1 year as a starter, and All-American. Fantastic player this past year. Really good coverage ability. And he's typically not the type of guy I like in terms of, I like linebackers that can take on blocks and shed blocks, and he's certainly not that guy. He's a guy who has to go around the blocks, not super physical, but when you see what he can bring in coverage, I mean, it's one of the top 2 or 3 coverage linebackers in this draft. Mm-hmm. And maybe I just need a coverage guy in Indy so bad, because we just haven't had it. Basically in the entire time I've covered this team, they haven't had this true, legit, top tier cover linebacker that I'm all for taking a guy like him on day 2, because they just need that impact player, especially in this system with what Lou Anarumo wants to do. I mean, you look at the impact that Logan Wilson had on Anarumo's system when Wilson got there. I'm not saying these guys are exactly as similar, but there are a lot of similarities in their game. So Schwessinger, if they can't get Jihad Campbell in round 1, or they can't land a couple of these free agent linebackers that are still out there, he would be an excellent consolation prize in round 2 or round 3 or wherever he ends up going come draft day.
Yeah, he's. You had mentioned, he's not always going to get off those blocks when he gets kind of caught up in the trenches, but he is tenacious, and you could see him absolutely bowling through running backs who are just trying their best in pass protection. So he may not win every matchup, but a lot of these one-on-ones against guys who are his size or smaller, he's going to win that one all day. So,
Yeah.
Guys, so far, so good, I think, from both of us. But now we are moving on to the third round where I have got an extra pick.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, so let's start this thing off. We're going to stagger this a little bit since I've got 2 picks. We'll make a little bit of a sandwich out of you. I'll tell you who I'm going to go ahead and take first, though. So this is a guy who I think by default, this offensive line group throughout the entire draft is very versatile because they either lack the prototypical size, length, or athleticism to play what they did in college in the NFL. And one guy who I think has great guard size, but he's got the really good fleet of foot mobility for a tackle is Marcus Bowe from Purdue. He is so unorthodox, and I saw you really highlight that on Twitter recently. Like a lot of the things he does with his feet is what an offensive line coach will scream at his guys for doing, but it works so well for him. Again, it's very unorthodox, but his feet are so good and quick that he gets to where exactly he needs to be, and it's perhaps confusing for the guy who's trying to line up against him. But, he's like 6'4", 303, I think. I think he's got like awesome size there for guard if he could put a little bit more weight on for there in the interior. Now, if a team thinks he's going to lose some of that athleticism by adding too much weight, then sure, see what you got at offensive tackle there. But still, just like what you mentioned with Tate Ratledge, they need another guy who has got some versatility. I don't think they can add any more guys who are pigeonholed into one spot. Like Danny Pinter is a center only. Blake Freeland, practically, if you could put him out there, he is only a right tackle. Like they have to keep adding a couple more guys who've got that versatility. And whether they try him at a swing tackle or to compete at right guard where Matt Gonzalez, we presume, is going to be, I would just be excited to see Marcus Bowe, if he lives up to his potential, what that looks like. And he checks a lot of Colts boxes. Spent most of his career at right guard, had a season cut short due to injury, and then moved to right tackle for a year and looked great. So that's very much a Chris Ballard player right there.
Oh gosh, we're making too many jokes on this episode about how the Chris Ballard archetype is just injured players.
We got 8 years of draft data, man.
Yes. So I guess the injured player is really Chris Ballard's mold there. But Bo's interesting because the Colts are one of the few teams in the NFL who don't seem to care too much about arm length at offensive tackle. So on paper, they could be a team that would try him at tackle, but one thing they do care about is height and weight. And he really doesn't have that whatsoever. So I don't know if the Colts will put him at tackle. I don't know if any team would really put him at tackle, but I do love that interior versatility that he has. I think he can be a perfectly fine guard, especially in a zone-based system. The Colts were very zone-based for the first year and a half of Shane Steichen's tenure with the team. I think he'd be a fantastic center in the NFL. And Chris Ballard mentioned at the Combine that they think Tanner Bortolini could play some guards. So maybe you take a guy like Bowe in round 3, you put Bowe at center, and Bortolini is your long-term right guard, and Gonzalez is working out as your swing tackle for the next year, and then takes over for Braden Smith the year after. Like, it just opens up a lot of possibilities. So Marcus Bowe is maybe not a pick that I'd be like going crazy over, just because I think I would rather get like a guard or a tackle in here, and Bowe might be a center. But again, get good players on the offensive line. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Just draft good players. And I think Marcus Bowe is a good player. He might sneak into round 1, by the way, with the center potential. I do think that some team might fall in love with him as a center, and we could see him sneak into the end of round 1. Going to my next pick, though. So, again, with my trade back with the Detroit Lions in this hypothetical, I picked up the very last pick of the 3rd round. So, essentially a 4th round pick here. And I need to reach a little bit for a guy who I just think is going to be a fantastic player in the NFL. And again, for some of these mock draft things, this might be a bit of a reach, but for me, honestly, I feel like I'm getting a steal here, and that is defensive tackle CJ West from Indiana. And I'm not just playing to the locals here. CJ
Pandering.
West has some fantastic film, like some next level film, has got really good size, a little over 300 pounds, was a run stuffing force for Indiana last year. And honestly, had some pass rushing juice too that I was shocked to see on film. I really turned on his film expecting to see this next level run stuffer. And I saw that, don't get me wrong, but there were flashes of what he could be as a pass rusher as well. And for me personally, I'm just looking for that Grover Stewart backup. The Colts have not had that since Al Woods. Like, we have not had a competent backup nose tackle in with the Colts in a long, long time. So if we can get someone like CJ West in here where, for those 30% of the snaps that one of Grover or Buckner is not going to be on the field for rundowns, if you can have a competent player come in who has potential to be even more than just a competent player, I'm all for that. So CJ West, again, like in round 3, some of the mock draft things might say this is a bit of a stretch, but I need a run stuffer. I need a run stuffer behind Grover who can maybe develop into something more like Grover has over the years. And I think CJ West can really be that. I'm really impressed by his film. And honestly, I think if I were actually scouting all like 400 or 500 players in this draft, I don't know if he'd be the 102nd overall player for me. I think he'd be in the top 90, top 80 type players because the film really is that good when you turn it on for him. I know Indiana fans who are probably watching this can probably attest, but some really great film from him last year. And he could surprise and go higher than this, but I'm going, off of what all the mock draft stuff says. He might be available by 102, but I'm looking for that Grover Stewart backup, and CJ West just screams perfect backup for me.
Yeah, I know IU's schedule got a bit questioned and everything, and the validity of pretty much all of IU's success this year came into question for a lot of people. But then West went to, I think, the East-West Shrine and really stood out there as well. I think he was one of the big performers from there. So this is a guy who's doing his job and passing the tests so far through the pre-draft process. And getting a guy like that, I would love it because it means they're not going to try and miscast Neville Gallimore as the backup nose. If you get a guy who's definitely like your backup nose, I really like that potential a lot. So you're right. I mean, I do like the addition of Gallimore, but they need the complementary thing. Like they need the defined backup 3-tech and they need the defined backup nose, and they need them to be good more than anything.
Yeah.
So
like,
I'm in favor of that.
Just touch on this real quick and I'll let you get to your last comment. But like, people don't realize how much the backup defensive tackles play. Yeah. I know with Louis Narumo, it might be different than Gus Bradley, but they play at like a 30% clip. Like that's a lot of snaps. So this needs to be competent behind those two players. And CJ West, for me, I think he could be better than competent. So I'm all in on him. If the Colts had pick a 102 like they do in this scenario, if you take CJ West, I'm feeling really good there.
I like it. It also drives me nuts to miss out on local players. I know it's not the same as like colleges recruiting high school players, but when you got guys in your own backyard, I hate it when they get passed up. So my final guy is another guy with Indiana roots, Toledo defensive tackle Darius Alexander from Toledo. So I'm kind of following in your same footsteps here. I like the addition of Gallimore, but we've been preaching competition, and you can't just be satisfied with this one addition. And they do need more bodies there anyways. Like anything out of Tommy can give you, great, but the Colts apparently have moved on from Raekwon Davis and Taven Bryan.
We'll see on Taven Bryan. We have no clue if he might be back.
Gallimore should be Bryan's replacement, but you still need Raekwon's replacement. So get Darius Alexander in there. This is a perfect Chris Ballard pick. We know on day 2 he's willing to go after the older guys, and Alexander's going to be 25 as a rookie. But if you scale him back to like 22, 23 years old, the guy's going late first. Yeah. His athleticism and size, his performance at the Senior Bowl and the Combine, awesome. Like this is, I mean, I'm not going to say he's this year's Quinion Mitchell, but like a similar thing, like where he did really, really well for a small school, Toledo specifically. There were questions about him, but then he came out and aced everything pre-draft. And it's like, okay, well, what do you do with this kid? He's passing every test you're asking of him. So no, this dude is explosive. He's huge. I I don't think he's necessarily a type that you pigeonhole into a 3-tech or a nose. I think he could do a little bit of both. And so I love adding him into the mix, especially when you already know you have Gallimore. Now, he's an older guy, so you don't want to have to wait for him too long to develop. But having the 3 guys already ahead of him there gives you the luxury of time a little bit. You don't have to force him into a huge role right away. But I think Alexander, the 3rd round would be the perfect time to swing for him if he's there.
Yeah, and I'll add this to all the Gallimore talk that you said with that there. Like, Neville Gallimore is getting $400,000 guaranteed next year.
Yeah, not a lot.
He shouldn't even be brought up in draft conversations. It's a 1-year deal with $400,000 guaranteed. Yeah. Like, if you view Darius Alexander as potential starting defensive tackle or your 3rd defensive tackle, you don't even bring up Gallimore in those conversations. Like,
I'm saying it in that they have the flexibility to not have to force him into a role bigger than what is necessary.
Right. I'm not saying that Gallimore doesn't apply whatsoever. I'm just saying, like, it shouldn't prevent you, or it can cross your mind when it comes to drafting a player, because Alexander, like, if he's everything that you think he can be, he should be able to surpass Gallimore pretty early, or again, play alongside Gallimore, depending on how you want to play your defensive fronts there. But that is all we have for Mock Draft Monday today, guys. So just to recap, in round 1, I traded up for Tyler Warren. I gave up the Colts' 3rd round pick. So in round 2, to recoup that draft selection, I moved back, picked up the very last pick in the 3rd round in that trade back, got Tate Ratledge from Georgia in round 2, and then in round 3, picked up CJ West from Indiana. Jake, on the other hand, he traded back, got Colston Loveland from Michigan in round 1, and then in round 2 took linebacker Carson Schwessinger from UCLA, and then in round 3 with his extra draft selections, he took Marcus Bowe and Darius Alexander, really playing to you natives there here in Indiana. The local Indy kid in Alexander and the guy who played at Purdue. Come on, Jake. Come on, you're cheating here.
Not that CJ West? Yeah.
I would say not that I took an Indiana defensive tackle in round 3. But you guys let us know what you think in the comments below. Who won this Mock Draft Monday? What would you do in round 1? And are you in favor of trading up for Tyler Warren or trading back for Colston Loveland? Let us know in the comment section below. And we want to thank you guys for making Locked On Colts your first listen today and every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. Now that the season is over, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every single day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider, chat with us directly. Get that insider scoop, and also get first dibs on Q&A episodes, which we get a million questions. Make sure you're following the link in our show notes. And if you guys don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks2, all on Twitter. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We love your guys' ratings, reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow afternoon.